It's been lost as to when exactly it happened, when they came. At first it seemed like there were just a few of them. They weren't too much of a threat. Some of us would go missing from time to time, but it wasn't really enough to worry anyone. Every living thing has disappearances from other creatures, or simply losing one's way. Eventually, they came like locusts, like a plague. They were everywhere. They were taking over our homes, tearing them apart to create their own crude structures. They brought with them unimaginably loud noises and screaming. Then along the way, one of us found out that those things were eating us. More and more of us began to disappear, and sometimes one of us would stumble across a body. Strung up, cut, gutted, lifeless, butchered beyond recognition, those creatures would carve off pieces of flesh and add some kind of dirt to them, or an odd liquid, some sort of unusual seasoning, perhaps. Then put it in a pan, or other cooking means, and the smell. Oh God, the smell. Have you ever smelled the flesh of your brother, father, sister, neighbor, someone you grew up with, someone that you knew, cook? It's horrid. We weren't the only ones, though. No. They snatched up just about any other species to feast on, to make meals of. Over time, we gave up and moved into the forests. Some of us lived on the edges, roaming close to the things and places that these creatures created. Some of us pushed deep into the woods in an attempt to hide and try to live a new life, away from the gnashing teeth of those things and the horror that they brought with them. But in the forest, our chances of survival dwindled as well. We now had to be more careful of other predators. Mountain lions, bears, wolves, coyotes, anything that ate meat. We didn't have the spaces to hide from these threats anymore. And those demons, those alien things that pushed us deeper, also pushed animals that would hunt us deeper into the forest as well. Although we still used the sun to see, we grew accustomed to the dark more, and we could easily move around. It was easiest to search out food in the between times, such as dusk and dawn. Those things weren't as active then. We learned what areas to avoid, when we could creep up to their buildings and homes to find some sort of forgotten treat long missed by our mouths. Sometimes a night of searching for something to put in our bellies and sustain us was met with disgusting horror, finding bodies of fallen brethren on the sides of the roads, mangled, broken, and twisted. If we were lucky, the bodies we came across weren't too badly mutilated, but sometimes they were worse. A body might be cut in half, looking as if something ripped it apart rather than cut it. Blood would be spattered around, and intestines or other internal organs would be spilling out of whatever unnatural hole was nearest to them. The eyes would stare at nothing, dark, lifeless, haunting. All you could do was cringe, hope that they didn't feel too much pain before they died, and walk or run away from it. Many times we tried to take solace in the fact if one of us was found on the road, we knew at least it wouldn't be eaten by one of those lanky, groping, angry things. They treated us like nothing. We had become nothing. I'm sure we were just kept around and our population not completely wiped out so they could have some sport, some entertainment. But they didn't even really care if we were hungry or tired or just wanted a little food, just wanted our family most of the time. They would still just break us and throw us aside if we crossed their path. By the time I came into this world, this was the type of life we had known for generations, living on the edge of a world that was stolen from us, doing what we could to survive. Sometimes going hungry for months, and sometimes I was so hungry. This morning, I woke up that way. Well, I say morning, but it was actually just before dawn. I stretched and stood up, walking the sleep off my cramped limbs. My stomach grumbled almost immediately. I hadn't eaten anything substantial in a few days. I had kept to the forest, foraging for what I could find that nature provided. I knew there was a clearing not far, but it was dangerous to be out in the open for too long. The air was getting colder each day, and frost could be found on the grass in the mornings. It would be winter soon, and it seemed like it was gearing up to be a rough one. My stomach groaned at me again, and I knew I had to risk it. With winter, food would become more scarce, so I needed as much as I could get right now. Maybe I wouldn't have to get too exposed. Maybe I could just go to the edge of the clearing and find something I could use to satiate my stomach for a bit. When I got there, I could look around and make sure that it was safe. Take my time to be sure that there were no lurking predators. Then push into the clearing where I knew I could find some bushes with berries at least. I made my way slowly to my destination, stopping at a stream along the way to drink some of its cold water. It felt icy but good, slipping down my throat. Before I knew it, I was in the trees at the edge of the open space. It didn't seem like there was anything around. I had seen a few others through the trees on my way, but I didn't see anything that would harm me. Still, I waited a while, circling the little clearing and looking for anything good to eat as I did. Eventually, I had walked twice around it, and there was still no sign of anything or anyone lurking around. I stepped hesitantly out of the tree line, and thought I heard a noise. I jerked my head up and looked around for a second, then froze and strained my ears to try to hear it again. Nothing. Just the normal sounds of the forest. Birds chirping, wind rustling the leaves a bit, small animals scurrying around. The night around me seemed to be getting just slightly lighter, and I looked towards the sky, knowing sun was inching its way around to bring the day to our corner of the world. I shook off the feeling that something was out there, since I heard nothing else. Just a few feet into the clearing, I could see a bush. It was a bush full of beautiful, delicious berries. My mouth watered just looking at them. Still moving slowly and carefully, stepping gingerly through the grass in very calculated motions, I approached the berry bush. By the time I reached it, I still heard nothing and felt at ease now, relishing the thought that I would get those juicy berries into my belly soon. I bent down to pull a berry from a small branch where I heard it. This time, it was unmistakable, leaves being crunched slowly and methodically under feet. I looked up again, searching for where the sound was coming from, but couldn't quite tell. Then I saw it. It was one of those things that like to cut us up, torture us, then dine on our seared flesh and body parts until it could no longer stuff any more into its stomach. It was coming from just ahead of me, stalking quietly, partially covered by trees, surrounding it on the opposite of the clearing, eyes staring straight at me. I needed to move, and fast. My thoughts all ran and screamed in my head. My bones burned with the knowledge that they needed to run, my blood pumped with adrenaline, trying to make my limbs respond to what my brain knew they needed to do. I started breathing heavy and quick. I screamed in my head to tell myself to just run, get out of here. Finally, as the creature lifted its arms, pointed towards me, wanting me, and was almost to the edge of the clearing, my legs remembered how to work, and I spun around to run as rapidly as I could. Suddenly, an intense burning pain shot through my back, and I crumpled to the ground. I was too late. It had me. I tried getting up, but my left leg couldn't move, then pain rippled through me. I heard it coming up to stand over me. The last thing I saw was this thing pointing something at me. I could see the top of its body had sort of a bright skin, orange and blinding in the rising light. The last thing I heard it say was, "Your antlers are gonna look mighty fine on my wall." Then the human shot me again, ending the pain. This story was provided by the always wonderful Boe Whiskey. You can find her and other writings like this in the description below.